Hello friends, welcome to the ASP.NET Core tutorial series. In this tutorial, we will see what is out-of-process hosting model in ASP.NET Core. In the previous tutorial, we have seen in-process hosting model in ASP.NET Core. So before proceeding with this tutorial, I recommend you please watch part 8 of this tutorial series because this part is a continuation part of part 8. So let's understand what is out-of-process hosting model in ASP.NET Core. So basically, we have know in the previous tutorial, once we develop any application like ASP.NET Core web application, then what we have to do, we have to deploy that application on the server. So for deploying that application on the servers, basically on the IIS server, then we can host a core application using the two process called in-process and out-of-process. And basically in the in-process hosting model we have discussed in the previous tutorial. And for getting like which process currently we are using, then we have line of code. We can get the process name, and the line of code is like get current process dot process name. It will return us the process name, like currently which process we are using. If we are not using any process, then by default it use the in-process hosting model. And basically, like if we use in-process hosting model, then there the process name, like if we are using IIS Express, then the process name will be IIS Express, and if we are using the IIS, then the process name will be W3WP. And if we are using out of process hosting model, then it return us the project name. So in the previous tutorial we have seen, like let's go to the Visual Studio and like where we defined the process name, hosting model name. So that we defined in the project. Here we have to define like which process we are not using. If I am not using this process, then by default it will take as a in process. And where we can see in the project properties. And here we can see like by default it use hosting model as a in process hosting model. Now we will understand like how we use the out-of-process hosting model in ASP.NET Core. But before that, let's understand like what is the out-of-process hosting model. So this is the basically in-process hosting model which we have discussed. Like in-process hosting model can be hosted only on the IIS worker process. So the most important point that we need to remember that like in case of the in-process hosting model, we have only one web server, and that is the IIS server, which we discussed in the previous tutorial. But in case of the out of process, we have two server. One is the internal web server and another is the external web server. So for the internal web server, we have Kestrel web server, and for the external web server, we have IIS, Apache and Nginx. So the most important thing that which we need to remember is like how we are running our ASP.NET Core application with the out-of-process hosting model. Like the external web server like may or may not be used. That we will see in a bit. Like can we run this out-of-process hosting model using internal web server only, or we have to use the external web server? So with these two things we will discuss in this tutorial. So let's understand first one by one. So before that, let's see what is the Kestrel server. In the previous tutorial also we have discussed about the Kestrel. Like Kestrel web server is a cross-platform web server which is already embedded with ASP.NET Core application. And if we are using out-of-process hosting model for ASP.NET Core web application, then we have to use this Kestrel web server using two ways. Like what all are the two ways we will see. So what is the first steps? Like if we are using wave 1, where what we have to do, we have to use the Kestrel web server only as a internet facing web server, which will directly process the incoming HTTP request. So what happened, like in this scenario, only the Kestrel server is used and other one like external web server is not going to be used. So what is the one way? Like if we are not using the external web server, then we can use internal web server as a Kestrel web server. And in this case, we don't use the external web server like IIS and others. So when we run the application in .NET Core CLI, which we have seen in the last tutorial also, like if we run our application using .NET Core CLI, then Kestrel is the only web server that is going to be used to handle and process the incoming HTTP request as shown below. So what it is trying to say, like if we run our ASP.NET Core application using Core CLI, then it take the incoming HTTP request as like we can see here, like this is the Kestrel server and it is taking the incoming request from the internet. So let's understand this one using the .NET Core CLI. So I have already opened this .NET Core CLI, and in the previous tutorial also we have seen like what all are the help we have with the .NET Core. So these all are the help, like we can create the project, we can run the project, we can add the files, and there are so many things which we can do from here. But what we are going to do, we are going to run the application, and currently like we are using here in process. So let's change it with the AutoProcess. So for here I will change this the hosting model, and once I change the hosting model, let's see it what it is showing here. So what I have to do, first let's save it properly and let's go to the properties here. And once I go to the properties, and here we can see the hosting model, it is showing as a OutOfProcess, and currently we are using OutOfProcess. And in the startup class we have written that line of code which will return us the process name, basically like which process name we are using. So in case of the OutOfProcess, if we are going to get the process name, then it returns us the project name, and the project name we are having, ASP.NET Core with basic. So as of now, if instead of running this one, if I will run this application using this IS Express, so in this case also it will return us the project name basically. So in a bit we will see like it will return us the project name, and the project name which we are having like ASP.NET Core with basic. So this is the project name which we are using. Now same thing, like if I will run this application using this .NET Core CLI. So let's run from here. So first we have to go to that path where we are, our project is exist. So I have already copied that path here, and I will paste and hit enter. So now here we have to run our application. So .NET and then run is the command, through that we run our .NET project. And once I will hit enter here, so basically it will give us the these are the path, these are the port it is giving us like 5001 and 500, and from where it is giving these port we will see in the coming tutorial when we will talk about the file called launch setting. So in this launch setting, basically we have defined these path. Here we can see the application URL when we run this application using the project. So we will understand briefly about this file in the coming tutorial. So basically it is taking these two paths. So as of now, let's take any path port from here, and what I will do, I will run this port on the browser and we'll see the output. So let's go to the browser and see what is the. So let's go to the browser, and here if I will hit enter, and we can see the project name we are looking here. So this is the way one of using, like if we are using only the Kestrel web server as a internet facing. So basically in this case we it use only on Kestrel web server and it doesn't use the external web server. So this is the way one. And in the way two, what it do, like the Kestrel web server can also be used with the combination of the reverse proxy server such as IIS, Apache and Nginx. Now the question is like, why we should use this Kestrel server? Like if the Kestrel server can be used by itself as a web server, then which can directly handle and process of incoming HTTP request. So basically what I am trying to say, like the Kestrel server, if handle everything, like it handle the HTTP request and all these things, then why we need this proxy server. So this is because this proxy server provides us the additional layer of configuration and security which is not available with the Kestrel server, and it also maintains the load balancing. So it is good choice to use the Kestrel server along with the reverse proxy server. And like when we use this Kestrel server with the proxy server, then the reverse proxy server will receive the incoming HTTP request from the client and then provide the request to the Kestrel server for processing. Once the Kestrel server processes that request, then it sends the response back to the reverse proxy server, which then sends this response back to the requested client over the internet as a shown in the blue image. That image we will see. And here what we are looking here basically, like in the wave 1 we were having only the Kestrel server and the internet, but in the case of wave 2 we have a one proxy server in reverse proxy server in between. So what happened, like any HTTP request first come to this Kestrel server, like this proxy server, and from this proxy server it go to the Kestrel server. So it give us the additional security to the application. So like we should use this wave 2 for understanding. Like here currently, like what we are having currently, we are having this IIS Express. So this is the like by default used by this .NET, but in the coming tutorial what we will do, we will deploy this application on the IIS, and then we will understand about this reverse proxy server with this IIS, like how it work, this reverse proxy server with the Kestrel in ASP.NET Core. So as of now, like we have seen, we have two ways for the out of process. Like wave 1 only we use the Kestrel server, and in the wave 2 we use this Kestrel server with reverse proxy server with the different external server called IIS and Apache etc. So in the coming tutorial what we will do, we will deploy this application on the IIS server, and then we will see how this Kestrel server work with the reverse proxy server. So that's it for this tutorial. If you have any question and doubt, please comment.